Not a bailout. The great Canadian bank caper from the Chronicle Herald.ca. June 19th, 2010. You know how wonderful Canadian banks are. They didn't fail when others did and didn't need to be bailed out. We are standing tall among nations in that regard, and the Harper government can stick out its chest and preach the Canadian model of prudence and caution to a profligate world. Even the Americans are agog at our fiscal virtue. Plus, our economy has been recovering from recession faster than others, just in time for the G20 meeting in Toronto. It's wonderful. It's wonderful. Fake Lake and all. Does this sound too cute? Here's the inevitable other side of the story. The banks were actually bailed out to the tune of $125 billion just before and after the 2008 election in the form of a massive purchase of questionable mortgages and other rotten paper, in the words of one economist held by them. This was done through the Canadian Mortgage and Housing Corporation, a federal agency. The taxpayer is now on the hook for these mortgages, 40% of which are considered at risk, with more to come if interest rates rise and the economy dips again. But the kicker is this: hardly anybody noticed it wasn't an issue in the election, and the financial press said nothing. A few tired and are still trying to raise the alarm. Michael Shostakovsky, a retired University of Ottawa economist and head of the Montreal-based Centre for Research on Globalization, pointed out that the finance minister, Jim Flaherty, had announced a $2.3 billion surplus in the offing before the election, then quickly changed it to a $64 billion deficit. He argues that the entire deficit was for the first installments of the bailout, which the Prime Minister described as not a bailout, but a market transaction. Some other economists give the government more leeway, saying it was doing what others were doing, injecting liquidity into the banking system at a time when credit was threatening to seize up. But the sheer scale of the amount, plus the continuation of the bank's excessive lending practices, despite their image of prudence relative to the Americans, have led to something else. Remember that government money was supposed to stimulate infrastructure projects. What we got instead looks like a housing and consumer credit bubble, and the illusion of economic growth while other countries faltered. And I'm not going to read the whole article, but Canadians, wake up! I've been saying this for years. There's absolutely no doubt that this has affected Canadians and Canadian taxpayers. Now, most of you may not know, but in Canada, our tax rates are unbelievably high. And if you're in what they call a higher tax bracket, which is basically just an average type of a person, you pay over 50% of your income in income tax, not to mention all the other taxes. Canada cannot afford this. Stephen Harper, wake up, Canadians. Get rid of Harper. Get rid of this government. Wake up.
And quite frankly, everything that we do in our country to improve our country's position is ultimately to improve that position within the context of a global economy. And we cannot be effective at major economic matters any longer unless we work with our other economic partners around the world and work with them closely and intimately. That is essential. I know some people don't like it. It's a loss of national sovereignty, but it is a simple reality.